All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the Run Home Podcast, where I am your helpful host, Zubaz. And I am joined today by one of the biggest, most badass CSFBL owners of all time. Don't believe me? I'm about to prove it to you. He is MHardy, not 01, not 02, but 03. Mike, welcome to the Run Home Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for doing it, man. Well, actually, I just have to ask because I made that joke just now because I always thought your name was just MHardy. Were there two MHardys before you logged on, or is that a baseball number, or where did that come from?
No, that came from a really old login that I've used since high school.
So now you just have to use it?
It stuck. It was my email address for a while, then it wasn't, and the email or the login just stuck. So that was the first one I thought of when I signed up for the site 12 years ago. So that's what it is.
Funny. I was going to ask you when you started with the site. It was 12 years ago, huh? Like 2009-ish?
2010. Like I think it was January 2010.
Wow, That's crazy. Yeah, and 2010. I was trying to think about what was going on around there, but yeah, I mean, it's a long time, more than a decade. Does it feel like it?
In some ways it does, and in some ways it definitely doesn't.
Yeah.
It's weird because I signed up at about the exact same time as one other guy who we've both been in the same league the entire time. We both signed up almost within a week of each other. It's EOCF in Cards Clubhouse.
I was just about to try and guess. I wouldn't have guessed him though.
We've both been around the entire time. We both joined in 2037 of that league, and yeah, we've both been here ever since. Two of the pretty active people in that league.
Wow, and you both started in the same season and are still there 12 real life years later? That's badass.
Yeah. I think he might have grabbed it in the postseason of the previous season, and I grabbed it either right at the end, right before the flip, or right after the flip in 2037. And yeah, now cool. It's 2167. So
yeah, that's 140 some seasons, or 140 seasons. Yeah, that's or 30 seasons. Yeah, that's a long time. Like I'm in a couple leagues that are at that like 150 season mark, and it's just crazy to be able to have that history. It's one of the best parts about the game, the way it is. Like I talk about this sometimes. Like I look at CSFBL as a business, as effectively a startup, but we have the most history of any startup in history, and it's really cool to be able to have that type of history, not only for the people that are working on the game, but also just as a fan to have that. Because like, I don't know if you do, I'm sure you do with your Bayside Tigers. You go through and then you find a player that you forgot about, where you're like, oh, we had some good years. Right?
Yeah, well, and if anyone would ever ask him, if he happens to see this, he'll remember a shortstop. It was like the first trade I made way back, and it was when we were both brand new. Neither of us really knew what we were doing, and I ended up trading for a guy named Don Carney. He was a 97 range shortstop before either of us knew that was valuable.
That defense was good. Yeah.
He also was a 97 slugging and something like a 75 batting. So he was just an absolute monster. And
a beast.
At the time I traded my number one draft pick, the number one overall, and I moved down from 1 to 7. And there was another piece involved that went to him, and we both loved it at the time. It was like I got the guy who I wanted in the draft down at 7. He got the guy he was targeting at 1. And looking back at the end of his career, middle toward the end, we'd kind of learned the site a little bit more and realized how ridiculously one-sided it ended up being.
Yeah, but it felt pretty fair at the time.
Yeah. At the time, it definitely did.
Had you seen the draft list? Because you might not have known, like the number ones. Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, and it wasn't even, and at the time, my whole mindset was that I wanted pitcher. And this is before I really knew much. The guy I drafted wasn't even anything that amazing. but he targeted the number one guy because he saw someone he really liked, thought it fit his roster, so he traded away a shortstop. And I don't remember anymore if he already had one or what exactly the deal was, but I know, I mean, probably 10, 12 seasons later, he regretted it, and it's been salt in the wound every once in a while. So here's a little more salt that he hasn't heard in a while.
Yeah, he's gonna have to come on and defend himself. You just gave me a great idea, because everybody has a number one overall draft pick story. And I think we've all done this thing where we've traded for a number one overall before you see the list, because once every 15 or so seasons, a generational pitcher shows up, and everybody's hoping for that generational pitcher. But the odds are that you're going to end up with a seasonal hitter or a seasonal pitcher. But when you do that, on that rare occasion where you do just get like a player where you're like, this is going to be one of my all-time greats, and I know it on day one, it's one of the most satisfying feelings in the world. But for me, it's happened much more the other way than that way.
Traded away too many of them.
Yeah. Have you? Or I have.
Yeah, I was just saying, have you traded away too many of them?
Yeah. Actually, Clone and I have a really famous trade in TCL where I traded the number one overall for this guy, Willie Waltz. I talk about him all the time. If we ever get player portability where we can revive dead players, now I'm not promising anything, I'm just saying, like, if someday we could bring players back from the grave, it's going to be called the Willie Waltz rule, because I talk about him all the time. Traded for him, he was like 25 at the time, and I call him Wee Willie Waltz because, like, he was only like 5'7" and like 175 pounds, but he hit like 60 home runs every year. And
wow,
he was just this monster of a player. But then the number one overall pick ended up being an equally good hitter. And so it became one of these, like, kind of legendary trades, and the fact that everybody came out like way ahead. For, because I was trying to win now, and he had a little rebuild going on, so it worked out. But then I went to the World Series 5 seasons in a row, and Clone quit the league because he does not like it when I do well, and that's what that is. Hey, by the way, I was going to tell you, I wore this jersey for you because this is a Cardinals jersey, only it's the Sun Prairie Cardinals, which is my team in TCL.
That's funny. I was gonna wear a Cardinals shirt just to have it, but I didn't fully prepare well enough.
Yeah, I saw the Cardinals jersey, and I was like, oh, I'll wear this for him, because we were mentioning it before the podcast, and we've mentioned it multiple times. There is a very weird disproportionate amount of Cardinal fans that play CSFBL, and so even though I always talk about them ruining my life as a Brewers fan, like you said, too many of the customers are Cardinals fans now, so I can't go in too deep on them. But what do you? We've talked about it before. What is your sense of that? Like, why do we have so many Cardinals fans?
I don't completely know, but I have a feeling there's a big group of Cardinals fans that are really into just baseball as a whole, possibly because we don't anymore have an NFL team. We don't have an NBA team. It's baseball around this area. And when baseball season's out, you got to have something else to do.
Yeah, how
so I wonder if that
basketball team. That's crazy.
No NBA team.
Yeah.
I don't know. Crazy. There was one. The Hawks were here for. I mean, it was before I was born, but my dad's talked about it. And then, as you probably know, we had the Rams here for a while.
I do. They
left on a rather sour note. So
they've been known to do that before. They have history. Well, Angie, and wait, am I making this up? Weren't the Cardinals there before the Rams? And they went to Arizona. Yeah.
Yep. And that was before I remember. that was before I remember, but yeah, I know. I knew about that, and like my older siblings, they were around and I think they went to a game or two. But yeah, the NFL isn't, or St. Louis isn't a big fan of the NFL anymore.
That's definitely part of it. I do agree, though. Every Cardinals fan I know is like, this is a weird way to say it, but it is a good baseball fan. Like, they understand the game, they appreciate the game like you would want a baseball fan to. They are baseball people, and maybe some of that is because of the lack of other teams. But I also think it's something about that area. Like I know you're on the Illinois side, and I was in Missouri for a little while when I was working at a hotel, and everybody wears Cardinal stuff. Like, everywhere you go, they are so supportive of that team too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's the kind of a running joke of the best fans in baseball, which no fan of the Cardinals actually says that anymore. No real fan of the Cardinals who follows them closely actually says that. And I've seen that gets kind of used against us as oh, you guys think you're the greatest, but it's a media thing and a team thing. I mean, I'm pretty sure every team has something about their fans are the best or whatever. So
yeah.
But yeah, I know it gets played up a lot as the Cardinals, or at least I hear it all the time from fans of other teams. Oh, you guys are the best fans in baseball, and try to sarcastically say it. And it's like, yeah, that's not really something that actual Cardinal fans claim. It's more of a media and team driven thing that became a thing.
Yeah, I mean, they are certainly good fans. You are right, though. Like, the Brewer fans, they think they're the best fans because they turn out even when the team's bad. They tailgate. They are really good fans. I think the one thing that the Brewer fans and the Cardinal fans can absolutely agree on is that the worst fans in baseball are definitely Cub fans.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So now all the Cub fans on the site are yelling at the screen, Wrigley Ivy and Cubs fella and all those guys. But the Cub fans really are the worst. They call Miller Park in Milwaukee Wrigley North. And when there's a
I've heard that.
They come up in mass, and like half the stadium is Cub fans, and they're so rude and terrible. Do better, Cub fans. You're better than that. But that also is because of a big rivalry, like not just baseball, but obviously football is a pretty gnarly rivalry between Wisconsin and Chicago.
I could see that.
Let's look at this team. I want to bring this up for a second. I'm going to try and share my screen here because I want everybody to know what the start of this podcast was all about. And I said it kind of jokingly. Can you see your teams up there?
Yep.
On the screen? Okay. So I said that you were one of the best dominant owners of all time, and I can prove it. Now, before we get into that, you only have 2 teams. Have you always kept just a limited number of teams and then really focused in?
Yeah. So this league I got invited to by a buddy of mine, and I think I don't know if he's around a whole lot anymore, but it's Go Cardinals 1511. And Cards Clubhouse used to be a forum that was separate of the CSFBL site. We actually all went there, or they pulled a bunch of people from there. They talked Cardinals baseball, and then we had a separate section of the forum for CSFBL. That's why if you go back in time on the CSFBL forum, there's really not much talking going on, but it's because all the chatter was on that site, because we also spent time on that site with other stuff, just general baseball talk and so on. But yeah, that's
how we got some of the
started.
Cardinal fans. Yeah, okay, that makes some sense.
Yep. Yeah, I got invited there. I had one team. I mean, it took a while to figure out how things work, just because not everything is super straightforward on it all. Yeah. Got a lot of help from Andahar.
Oh, really? Another Cardinal fan. Yeah.
Yep. He was a really long running person in this league. I learned a lot from him, especially at the very beginning. There's another guy, Rolling 27 fan. He's been around for a while. I think this is the only league he's in also. He helped a lot with learning the game, learning how things work. And then after that, it's been a lot of just, figuring things out on my own. But yeah, I tried joining a couple other leagues, and I never felt like I was given, like, I don't know. I felt like I needed to put everything into one team. I'd rather know everything about that one team, know the league pretty well so that I could, plan trades. I could make sure if someone drops a player that helps me, I'm going to pick them up, know who's winning and who's losing, again, just to help with kind of trading stuff. And yeah, I never really joined any others. I did join GOAT. G Sparks got me into that for the second and the third one, I believe, or the third and the fourth. And then I'm going to be back in that again in the next one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so 12 years, I never really expanded much, but I think I'm probably going to now.
Well,
it's time.
You mentioned Andujar, and he is genuinely one of the nicest people I've ever met. And he's helped a lot of people out, so I'm not surprised to hear that. He's been around for obviously a long time too. I don't know, is it Roland 27 fan? Is that?
Yep. He was one that helped me. I think he's only been in Cards Clubhouse. He was one of the really active people on the forum also. And I think at one time he was doing a Cardinals blog. He was writing about it. So we talked baseball, and then we also talked CSFBL. And so that was one of the ways I learned it.
And so why did you choose a team name from Saved by the Bell?
I think when I joined, it was soon after college, and the only thing I can remember was that at that time Netflix was brand new. Saved by the Bell was on Netflix.
Yeah, college thing.
We watched every episode of it in college. At one point, we had a Saved by the Bell party to where we all had to dress up as a different character, and I think this was not that long after that.
That's awesome. That's a good story. Yeah. At least there is a story behind it. Who'd you dress up as?
I think I might have been
Kelly Kapoor.
No, it was I was one of the really obscure people. I can't think of his name anymore. I think it was the guy that they put the cream on his face to cure acne, and it turned his entire face red or something like that.
I do remember
he was in
that.
One episode.
I don't know who it was, but I remember that. I saw those episodes too. I think like that was like kind of a cultural phenomenon for a while.
And now you look back and it's like, man, that was really cheesy. What are they wearing?
Was terrible. It wasn't funny. It's so weird, but like it gets you. I don't know. All right.
Yep.
So now we're going to talk through this little gem here. Okay. So in 2037, as you said, good memory, you took over this team. You took it over from Go Brewers. Jesus, when I saw that. And then obviously, like it goes to show that you're a terrible owner, as these first 4 seasons were terrible. And that's all I wanted to show. Okay, we'll go a little bit further.
I'll admit I did tank in that 2039 season to get the number 1 pick.
Oh, did you?
I did. Yes, I definitely did. Did it just enough to get that first number one pick, and then ended up it worked out as we already talked about. I got a generational player.
Well, there's a 7-year statute of limitations, so this is 12 years ago. I think you're safe. Let me get. I don't think people can see that, but it's in my way. All right. So then all of a sudden you figured out how to play the game pretty quick, because 5 seasons in, you made the playoffs already. And now you start by going on a pretty crazy run here. So I don't know, what is that? 4, 8, 12, 14 seasons. What was happening at this time? You were still pretty new at the game, and in those 14 seasons, you had 400 or 500 win seasons.
A lot of it was Don Carney being the centerpiece of everything.
Yeah, it helps when you got a guy like that.
I learned from Andahar. I saw how he built his teams. When those first few seasons, I looked at the teams that had done well, and they were all built around defense. So I figured out very quickly how important defense was. At the time, this league was probably semi-active. I think we were mostly full, but and it's really been the same way the whole time. There's probably 10 to 12 truly active owners. Probably 8 to 10 that are not really active at all, but they're still there. And then everyone else is it's either unowned or so inactive that they're just auto picking. So it's not the toughest league, I will say, just because of that. It's not, everyone's not super active.
Yep.
So yeah, I had him. I had a couple other.
But I mean, still, you were like in real life time, you were only there for probably 5 months before you started having that success. It's still pretty impressive.
Yeah, like I said, I asked so many questions in those first few seasons, and I just peppered them with everything, and dug into all the history and everything, and that's kind of where I figured out how scouting worked, because at the time things were not extrapolated for us.
Yeah.
So I had a spreadsheet to where you'd log out, you enter everyone, log back in, enter everyone on a sheet, and then have formulas that would calculate
God,
for
I forgot
you.
about that. What a pain in the ass. You had to log out to look at them. Oh yeah. I don't miss that.
Yeah.
So and we'll put a pin in that, because we're gonna mention scouting here in a little bit. But okay, so but that's not the story. This is the story, because this might be the greatest streak in CSFBL history. I don't know if we checked on that. Is it the greatest streak? Have you looked?
Yeah, it is. Well, as far as length, it definitely is, because I think at one point a while back, Matthias put together the longest streaks, right. And I think it was in the 40s at the time.
And it was number one then. So
yeah.
Okay, so you got this one World Series out of these 12 things. You did a little. It's clear, just I can tell by the number of wins, that you did a little bit of a reshuffle of the team. And then this happens, and I'll draw everybody's eyes over here to where lost division series 4-2. Watch that column. And this starts to happen. Playoff after playoff, there's a World Series, there's a World Series, there's another one. He's still going in the playoffs, still World Series, World Series, World Series, and it just keeps going. Won 3 World Series in 4 years. I was looking at this earlier today. It's shocking how good this is. He wins a World Series every other year for 4 years, and then wins it back to back. Another back-to-back win. Look at how many. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Look at, and now you start like hitting your stride here. World Series, World Series, World Series, World Series, and just crushing. And then recently, you had a 90-win team that somehow did not make the playoffs, which should have probably made the playoffs. But I mean, 90 wins usually gets you there. So the streak was broken, but not because you did anything wrong. It's just I'm guessing that a couple people did something right. Talk us through the streak, and then talk me through the end of the streak.
So I'll just mention the end of the streak because it's pretty quick. We lost on the last day of the season. We played against the team. We were 1 game back. I had the tiebreaker playing against.
Oh, you had the tiebreaker. So if you won, you were in on a tie.
Yep. Oof. And I had I think my second best pitcher still going.
That would have been a great way to make it in too, to keep the streak.
Oh, yeah, to keep it going. There was a couple seasons in there where things got pretty close, and I had to make a lot of in-season stuff that I normally would not have done, just to extend it. But in this one, it was, I thought things in that season, I thought things were on cruise control mid-season, and in September they fell apart on me, and I think they went 500 in September, and the team in second had his ace going on the last day, and they knocked us off.
For those of you at home doing quick math, it is true that more than 80% of these seasons are over 100 wins, including this gem right here, 129 wins, which is close to the CSFBL record for most wins in the season. I think somebody got 131 or something in a non-gimmick league. So I mean, that's one of the best seasons of all time until that happened, I guess. But
yeah.
But yeah, talk through this streak, and I don't even know what to make of it. It's like 4 real life years.
It's 105 seasons, and I just remember back when Smatias got really active and was posting all these site-wide records. I was kind of curious at the time, because no one had any idea what the longest playoff streak was. And actually, I'll tell you, at the very beginning, the only reason I even tried to start something like this was because, again, Andahar, he had a streak going when it was before the salaries were redone and salary cap was 50 million. He had a streak of just winning 80 plus games. And his whole goal was just to be competitive every year for as long as you possibly could. So I was like, I'm going to try this. And once I started, once the salary caps went up, we bumped ours up. Well, salary, if you remember back when they redid the salaries, everyone's salary jumped massively for a year or two. Yep. And then there was a little bit of pushback and it got toned back a little bit.
Yeah, because so it hurt the good teams so much more, because it you were paying a ton for a defensive shortstop and things like that.
Yeah. It over penalized range, or over made right. It way more than, like, you'd have an $8 million salary scrub or a 95 range shortstop that was worthless, but he was like 8 million.
Yeah, that's right.
And it got toned back. So when it ramped up like that, we were deciding where we wanted to move our salary cap up to. And there was talk between 55 and 60. We ended up deciding on 60 because in those first few seasons, if you saw, I had I think 115, 120 win season, and my salary was up around 70 million, something like that. And at that time, there was no sign and drop, as I recall. So I literally could not even drop players. Because it was something very strange where, because I didn't have anyone in AAA, I couldn't drop players because I had no one to replace them with. So I had to make trades, but no one wanted these guys, so they wouldn't help me make a trade to lower my salary, even if they just dropped the guy. It was wild. So we ended up moving it up to 60 million. And then from there, the league got a little bit less active. Like I said, a lot more people got real lives and, weren't nearly as active as they were. A lot of auto picks, good players falling to lower draft picks, a lot of fortunate trades that worked out really well. A lot of luck. My division was relatively weak. I had two people who were kind of in the middle tier of the activity, and they always did the cycling. They would draft really well, build a good team, and then they would trade a few guys to keep it going for a while, and then they would tank and restart.
So you got to benefit as they were both going.
They were never separately. They were never up at the same time. And the other 3 teams in the division just have not really. They've either been super inactive people who kind of stuck in the middle area. They get stuck with middle draft picks, and so on, or they go unowned and then they become bad, unfortunately.
Yeah, I wasn't anywhere close. I said 4 real life years. It's a lot longer than that. It's like 8.5 real life years.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that is crazy.
After Smatias started getting it, he got the number. I had a goal to go for then. And then it was like, okay, well, if I get that, then I want to make this record unbeatable. And then it kept going, and I kept getting, like I said, I'm going to tell you there's a lot of luck involved, because there absolutely was. And, I had some really good player would fall to, in the 20s in the draft, and I would scoop them up. Or I'd make a trade with someone who was competing now, and we'd trade a couple of years in advance of draft picks, and then they would just fall off a cliff the next year, kind of out of nowhere, unluckily. And I'd get a really high draft pick because of that. And we had a lottery, and I had some lottery luck and got a number 1 or 2 pick in there. So it was a lot of very fortunate stuff.
I mean, a lot of luck. You almost have to for a 105 win season, but there has to be a lot of skill in there. So my argument, I know you're not going to accept this, but on last podcast, Pimp and I were talking about, because a lot of people think Pimp is the best owner in CSFBL. He said, and I tend to agree with him, that it's probably Clone, because nobody's been more dominant in the most competitive situations than I've seen Clone. But I'm going to put you on the list. I mean, nobody, if you have the most seasons being in the playoffs, regardless of, this isn't a Greek league. This was an active private league, 105 seasons. You're in that conversation. So that's why I said it a little tongue in cheek to begin with, but that streak is crazy. I encourage other people to look at it, because there was years that you dominated as if the entire league was empty. Like that 129 win season, 2 seasons before, you had a 128 win season. The crazy thing is, those were the 2 seasons out of 5 that you didn't win the World Series. The other, I think there was 4 seasons around it where you did win. So I don't know. You had some bad luck there too, I would argue, because those teams should have won.
Well, that was what was so weird. If you noticed at the very beginning, I changed my team name to the Choke Artists, because I had a couple 110, 115, 120 win seasons, and then we lost in the first round to a team that had in the 80s. So that's when I changed them to the Choke Artists, because I for some reason thought that they could not win in the playoffs.
Oh, I gotta show that. I didn't even see that when I was scrolling through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at the very beginning. Mm-hmm.
There it is. Yep.
And then as you see, I won the World Series the year after that, and I changed their name back. And
yeah, okay. So this doesn't. Oh yeah, that violates the streak. Not the same team. Yeah, that's funny. The Choke Artists. Yeah, because look at those teams: 120, 124, 112, and you were losing in the first series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that hurts. So switching gears on you real quick, tell me about jumping back into leg. Is this it looks like you have been in there the whole time, is that right?
No, no.
Oh,
this is the team I took over.
Yeah, you haven't changed the name of this team.
Yep. No, Pimp actually sent me a message on Discord and just asked.
You weren't in the original leg, right? Yeah, he wanted you in just for competitiveness sake.
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome. So have you started playing?
This is the first season of it.
Yeah. All right.
So they
did
a league draft. They did a league draft of he gave back all the people who were previously in it. He gave back them, anyone who previously had a team, he gave them their team back. And I think there were 8 or 9 of us that are new. And they did a draft lottery of, like basically who would get a pick first on the remaining teams, and I got the last pick. So this is one of the teams that I didn't that I didn't get much of a say in. I've told people that basically they made the playoffs last season with 89 wins.
I'm sorry, I'm not looking at this with scouting. I don't know what these people look like.
Well, and
never mind.
It's not terrible. It's not great. The pitching is very old. I've been telling people who've talked to me about trades, it's kind of like I have a 2 or 3 season window to win, and then it's going to be a long rebuild, because I don't expect draft pitchers to fall in this league like they have in the other.
Yeah. Let's see what you don't have anything in the cupboard. Oh no.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing at all.
Let's see. So, I mean, leg. I was obviously talking to Pimp because I'm excited about what bringing back an iconic league like this can do. And it's cool that he brought back some of the original leg owners, including Joe Blow, who started the league in the first place. I hadn't seen Hank Jefferson in a long time. Yeah, this is a great league. You have some killers here too. You got VI in the league. Yeah, it's good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna stop saying names because otherwise I gotta say them all. You
there's
got Bashan. Bashan is in here.
Most of these guys I had never played with outside of there's a handful that were in the old relegation league that MHardy ran, and then it became too difficult for commissioners to continue, so it ended. And that's probably been, I don't know how many real life years ago that actually ended. But that was where I ran into, at least a handful of these guys, and then through GOAT I've played with several others. But outside of those, which are kind of somewhat a gimmick leagues, but I love those type of leagues. Actually, I actually am starting to lean more toward those type of leagues as far as my preference over the just super long term ones. I'm going to keep my Tigers forever probably.
Yeah, you have to.
I already mentioned to them that my activity level is probably going to drop compared to where it has been for forever, basically.
Yeah, I'm excited about that league. I'm excited to see how it's kicking off. Pimp and I were joking about how there was already some drama in the league because like that is what Leg was known for back in the day. If you remember, we had a controversy thread in TCL, and Leg was in it a lot more than TCL was. They were good at it. They're like the old Chai Beta. Chai Beta always used to have great fights too. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
So you mentioned maybe you won't have as much time. Is that potentially because some of it's going to be spent on developing the game itself? Like you are officially part of the development team for the game now.
Yeah. Actually, that's probably as much as anything else. I was really glad when we got in contact and we were able to make that work. I'm really excited.
We hadn't
to
talked about it before.
Help things.
How did you get? Remind me, how did you get on Brian's radar? You had talked to him through Smatias, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this, I forget when the very first time I mentioned something. With the first job I had out of college, I was looking for something different. I just came onto this site. I was like, hey, I wonder if they have anyone, helping with development of it. I just shot him a message. I think maybe he had posted something about looking for a little bit of help, and this probably would have been 2011, something like that. And I shot him a message. I said, hey, I'm a software development, web development guy. Just seeing what exactly you're looking for. Said I was looking for a new job at the time, which I was. And I asked if he was hiring, and he said, unfortunately, I'm not hiring right now. And that's kind of where it ended at that point. And then, when Smatias, when it got brought up again at some point, I was, more willing to. I had a little bit more spare time, had some spare time. I was going to volunteer, help him out through Smatias. I don't think I ever actually did anything then either. And it came up again, maybe 2019, 2020. Really? It came up again at some point. Again, nothing ever really came from it. And I basically just got the sense that Brian was pretty much putting in the spare time that he had into it. And that was about it. And it was just going to be difficult to, line up both of our spare time to even be able to really help much. So I at the time I was like, well, okay, I'm kind of given up on this. And the crazy part is, if that streak wasn't around, I probably would have left the site, to be honest. I
Wow.
was starting to, it was just getting stale being in one league. I didn't really know anyone else that well. My my goat season was finishing up, and if I didn't have the streak, I had a buddy who's like, you got to at least get to 100 at this point, because it was in like the 90s. So I got to 100, and right around that time was your announcement, and I was like, oh, let's do this. I'm in.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm back.
Yeah, I heard your name, and obviously I'm not in a Cardinal fan league, so we didn't know each other. And
Hmm.
I heard your name from I think from Smatias, but it was on a call when I was with Brian, like when it was just the three of us trying to figure out like what comes next, like what do we start doing, and yeah, I reached out to Clone, and I reached out to you shortly thereafter, and I don't know how many phone calls or whatever we had, and we eventually figured something out. And man, I'm so glad we did too, because I think there's there's a case to be made that there can be some great development help with a fresh set of eyes that hasn't played the game, and but there's also this great need for somebody that does understand the history, understands baseball, understand how that's applicable to CSFBL. I think, now with three people on the official development team, we have the best of all three of the worlds between those two and having the creator.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think just having another set of eyes, even on the same stuff, really helps. I think it helps Brian as
For
well,
sure.
because we'll throw stuff back and forth, and I mean, I've thought about this game for this long. Also, I've always wondered how it worked, and I had some ideas of how it worked just with a programming background. I could imagine it. I did mention to you that I, at one point a long time ago, attempted to build something
Yeah.
similar to this myself, and just love digging into the stats and trying to program something that could try to simulate it. I tried to build a physics engine, and that was never. I hit a point where it's like, it's just not even remotely possible for me to do this myself. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a lot of fun so far, and yeah, there's a lot of fun coming also.
Yeah, yeah, because we get to do the thing that's probably needed to get done for maybe for 10 years, and that's like do a rewrite of this game, like get rid of some of the legacy code, upgrade the games, because I I think the thing we're running into is how many things can we code in, somewhat archaic platform or language, when all this will either need to double code it when we do rewrite it, or we're not going to be able to fully implement some of the features we want to do without doing that part. I'm so excited about doing that over the next however long it's going to take, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it'll definitely be nice. And then I think the thing that was back when Smatias and I were kind of trading messages and talking about stuff, is like, I would like, at the time I was saying, I want to try to help with um, more league settings, just to take some work off of the commissioners. Um, and that's just a really exciting thing for
Yeah.
me, to try to help, you know, do as much of that as possible, while still um, keeping the basics of the game still the way they are. The
Yes.
engine, the taking the engine and being able to use it as well as we can, and build out all these different fun leagues. Like I said, relegation, that was probably one of my most fun leagues that I've ever been in, and I loved it. And I was so upset when they had to close it down. I completely understood all the work that had to be done by the commissioners, but it was like, oh, it was such a fun idea, and it would be amazing if
Yep.
we could be able to build that type of thing in again.
We have to build something like that in again, because like that, I always say there's going to be a knob, switch, or button for everything. But when I say that, that kind of insinuates in a league where relegation was multiple leagues, or like a ladder league or relegation,
Hmm.
where it creates added issue of some sort of portability of teams, portability of owners. And when we can do that, it really becomes unlimited what we can do, which is going to, it's going to unlock a million different opportunities that we can do. And I'm as excited about that as anything. And that's why I think it's so cool when the users invent new ways to do the league, because all those light bulbs go off of like, oh, we need to automate that, because if we could just think, and that was Andujar's brainchild, right? Like he did it. Yeah. I remember.
Yeah. And it was the regular 24 teams. He had it split up by division. Was, one division was the top one, second, third, and fourth, and the division champ moved up. The last place division moved down. No playoffs, didn't matter at all. It was all just regular season. And then, the winner of that season was the top division champ. The last place person was, the toilet bowl or whatever we wanted to call it. I can't remember what it was called
there
anymore.
Was a name for it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I think of relegation, if you could stack like a major AAA and AA, where you're relegating in the league and then between leagues as well. So there's like a dual aspect to the relegation.
And like the quality of players differed. And as you moved up, your teams would, you move up a league, then your team would obviously not be as good in that league. And you guys already have so many ideas that I think are great. It's just now we gotta update the site probably, and then this type of thing will be at least a little bit easier.
Yeah, that's the other thing, right? Is once we can update it, then we can implement change a lot quicker too, or at least I hope we can. I
would think so.
Yeah, there's just so much. I mean, and that's not the only reason that exists is because the game's 20 years old. So there's been tweaks and pulls and pushes for 20 years. I don't know if you could own anything for 20 years and have it be perfect. So this will get it back to some sort of pristine level, which is going to be good too. And when you think about it, because Brian has been doing this as a side project for that entire time, now he's doing it full time. There was volunteers and, other people in. Now we have like this, between Brian, yourself, and Adam, we have this professional team of developers that can focus in on it. So we won't have a lot of that one-off type work being done.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And also just, it's not hard to imagine how it's not reasonable for Brian to do a full update of the entire site over in his spare time, so it
would not have happened.
If anyone says, well, why is it still, really, really old? Well, he's doing it in spare time. It's not an easy thing to update everything even to just the newer technologies. Without breaking something.
He was, I mean, in his day job, he was coding. So in his spare time, like that's like if you were digging ditches all day and you came home and started digging ditches in your yard, like you had enough of work for the day, right? Like, but one thing, it's really cool to see how enthused Brian is again. Like he's really motivated and excited, and for something like this, I think this is, well, I mean, he said it on the podcast, like this is the thing that he's been waiting to do for 2 decades. He's wanted to work on a baseball sim full time, and so it's cool to see him so excited about it.
Oh yeah, and he's got plenty of ideas. Sometimes we have to be like, whoa, don't get that far down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, well, I think we all do that, don't we?
Like, we all do. We all definitely do that though as well.
Yeah, especially when I start talking about league options, and then I realize how crazy some of those options could get. But
it'd be nice if we could, in this way, it'd be nice if we could just skip forward in time and have all this actual dev work done, and at that point it'll be really nice. But It's definitely been fun though.
Yeah, it's awesome. When I first uh, uh, got involved, first thing we talked about was the draft, because the draft, we talk about all the time how many good owners we lost because of manual drafts. And now we're starting to talk about another bane of people's existence, and that's the scouting. Is like we talked about it earlier, where you had to extrapolate the scouting. That sucked, because it was like all this weird manual work, and you were kind of like hacking at the game, where you're logging out, logging in, taking the difference, multiplying it by whatever. I don't even
Mm-hmm.
remember how it went. And then before that, there was no scouting. You were just doing age and salary. You just didn't even worry about anything else. And that's why nobody knew defense was important, because it only really applied to hitting. And then,
Yep.
and so, but now it's like there's nothing opaque about it. So now you're just kind of, it's almost become rhythmic in a way, and that's not great either. So I know we don't have anything firmed up, but can you say anything about where scouting's headed?
Yeah, I think the initial idea for it was just that the more money you put into scouting, the more accurately you would see the players. And that is still true, but once people figured out how to extrapolate, it was once you got 2 million in scouting, there was really no difference between 2 million and 4.5 million.
Yeah.
And the only difference was, you saw them exactly once you hit full scouting. And if it was lower than 2, then it was a lot more questionable. If it was 0, you just saw nothing, basically. But then, if you think about it, that's not really how it really works.
Yeah. No,
you
yeah.
don't you don't have a team that, you drafted players, you saw exactly what their ratings were, or all their skill set, and
Exactly
then
what their potential was. And
yeah.
you could reduce their potential by not giving money to, or practice time to, the old players or whatever.
Hmm.
It just, the
Yeah, well,
correlation's weird.
and then it was like at a certain point, if your team was good enough, you didn't have the money to put into scouting, you just all of a sudden forgot how good they were.
Yeah.
That just, you don't forget about how old a 35-year-old, how good that person is after 15 years in the league. And so
Yeah.
it definitely, I feel like, and yeah, Brian's known this for a long time, it needed some sort of tweaking. And yeah, there's a few different ideas. I don't think there's anything concrete yet, but it will definitely be better. It will be an adjustment for everyone, regardless of what happens, including me. But it will be a better system that, um, more realistically, it's more realistic, basically.
Yeah.
Um, you won't have that weirdness of knowing perfectly well a 17-year-old how good they could ever be, and all of a sudden forgetting how good a 34-year-old was. That's not a thing.
Yep.
And that will also most likely be some sort of setting on the league. Um, so that'll give commissioners some sort of control over it.
That will be
I
important too, because it's funny how many leagues have started coming out that are just full scouting leagues,
mm-hmm,
where, and just because they are, again, coming up with a manual way around it.
mm-hmm. Well,
That
like your redraft stuff, that
Yeah.
you would not want there to be some hidden, you know, skill set, because that just doesn't really make sense.
Or
If
development
if
and drills when you're redrafting the whole. Yeah, I mean, you could kill players.
hmm Well, in that situation, the competition is really, here's the entire league. I'm going to beat the other people at drafting with everyone knowing the exact same thing. That is the skill. That is where it's at. Whereas if there was some sort of scouting to that, it'd be, well, if I just joined it this year, I am kind of screwed, because all of you guys who have been in it for years already kind of know all the ratings of these guys, and now I'm coming in just kind of at a disadvantage.
Yeah,
Whereas that's not really what the goal of that is,
yeah.
from what I know. I haven't actually played in one yet, but
Well, and when we were talking about this, I had an argument from kind of a side angle, where, like, there is no arguing that the way we have scouting, development, and drills is illogical, like objectively illogical at this point. But at the same time, my argument was always, this is a general manager focused game. So as many decisions, hard decisions, as you can have somebody make in the off season, I think is really important. And so, like, I don't think we wanted to get away from like that cost benefit analysis we have to do with players too. That part was important to me.
Yeah. And there still will be something with that. Like that's kind of what we're talking about right now, is trying to find that balance to where it's not just strictly go get the best players under the salary cap. There's also something along with that, that you can tweak and do whatever with. The other really nice thing about something like this, is new users, it makes no sense at all. And it's really hard, even for someone who knows how it works, to explain it to them. Because you have to kind of explain the history of the game. And then they're like, well, I don't care about all that. I'm just done. Because in Cards Clubhouse, we have cycled through so many people who I'd never seen before, and then I ended up never seeing again. Not because I'd always post, especially later. I won't say I did the same early in the streak, because at that time I was way more cutthroat than I was later on. Later on, it was a lot more of, we need to get people on and we want to keep them. Like, I'm not trying to, try to take advantage of a player or make a bad trade. Oh, they don't know what they're doing, so I'm going to go get this guy. It's more of, I'm going to really at least put it out there that, hey, if you want to learn how, peg me with questions, shoot me questions whenever. I will answer as best I possibly can, as honest as I can. And there were a few people that did that. And Craig1234, that is one of them. And then he vanished out of nowhere. He was a really good owner, and I don't know what happened with him. He just left. So Craig, if you're back on the site somewhere as a different name, shoot me a message, because I'm very curious. He was one of the guys that he asked all kinds of questions. He ended up turning into a really good owner, and then, like I said, he just left. I assumed it was something real life that he didn't have the time to put into it or whatever. But
well, that's fine. It's I'm excited to, we're not doing it just yet, but we're going to get an email out to the email list, because we need to get some of those old owners back that left for whatever reason, and let them know there's new life being breathed into the game.
Yeah. Well, and just the new user stuff again, in anything new, how many times do you see someone come on and they say, what type of player do you think this guy will be? And they share a link, and we all have to be like, well, we can't help you yet. How much scouting do you have? And what do you see for the ratings? And then they're just like, what? Why do I have to tell you that? Like, so it will be nice, hopefully. And like I said, nothing in stone yet, but it'll be nice if we can get to a point where everyone in the league sees players the same, or at least very close, and someone can share a link like that, and the entire community could come in and be like, hey, here's my opinion, because everyone has different opinions on players also, even. So it'll be nice,
much more communal and conversational and rational, and so everybody listening knows the reason we're not talking specifics isn't because there's some like secret project going on, as much as we don't really know exactly what this cake is going to look like until we bake it. We know the ingredients that we want and don't want in it, and that's about it right now. It's kind of a live topic. So
it's actually so I can continue my streak, or I can start a new streak. That's the real reason. I know all the secrets, and I want to just start a new streak. So
and Craig1234 is actually a bad owner. You just want him back because he gets great trades.
Exactly.
All right, so we're already at an hour. Not surprisingly, we knew this hour would go quick. But before we wrap it up, I'm curious if you had anything that you wanted to say to the community, or anything you wanted to get into the podcast, or any trash you wanted to talk, anything like that.
I actually don't have a whole lot more that we haven't covered, other than I'm excited that the new life has been brought back into the site. Like I said, I was close to leaving at one point, You can ask G Sparks. That he tried to convince me back then to, oh, you need to stay on, and it just everything was feeling kind of stale at the time, and yeah, now it just feels 180-degree difference from what it was even just 6 months ago, it seems like. Or I don't know how long it's been since you actually did the announcement, but
yeah, it's been about 6 months, almost exactly. Yeah, that's
yeah.
crazy.
And I guess the only other thing I'll add, and I've never even told you this before, when I saw you did the announcement and you said your name was Zubaz, and I wondered, I was like, I remembered seeing that somewhere through the forums.
Yeah.
No, and it was a thing. I was just different times while I've been on the site, I've been really active in, the main general forums. And every once in a while I would see all the different people. It's like I'd see the same people. They have a whole bunch of posts. And then I remember seeing a post by Zubaz, and I just saw the number of posts that you had on the forums. And I was just like, how is that possible?
I had over 50,000 posts. At one point I had like 12,000 more than the second biggest poster, which I think was Andujar.
Yeah, well, and that's what it was like. I knew all these people who had been around the site for 10 years, 15 years. And then I saw your name with that many more posts than everyone had ever seen. It's like, holy cow, what and I'd never been in any leagues with you or anything like that. So it's like, what is he doing on here?
Oh yeah. Well, I can admit to it now. It's like there was this hotel I ran that was so squared away. It was kind of running itself. And so for hours, like half my day, I would just be sitting in the forums, and we used in TCL, for whatever reason, we almost used the forums like a chat room as opposed to a forums. And so there was just a lot of posts happening. And I racked them up. And
that
it was
makes
something
sense.
I wasn't sure if I should be proud of or ashamed of. But at least now I can say that, like, now being officially part of the game, I legit love the game. So like, at least I have that to hang my hat on.
Yep. There's no doubt about that.
So and you mentioned in like 2010 or 11, you wrote to Brian asking if he wanted help on the development. It was sometime around there where I sent him a message saying, hey, I want in, like, I want to help. I want to invest. I don't have a ton of money, but whatever I have, I'll give you. Like, I was so committed to, like, wanting to get the thing off the ground back then. So it's funny that, like, it took 10 years, but we got to the right place eventually, where you're there and I'm there and Brian's working on it full time. So all three of us got our wish eventually.
Yep. Exactly.
All right. Well, we're going to leave it there. MHardy, please come back again. And to the rest of you, sorry, we got to run home. Until next time, we are out of here.